Good morning. Now, rather than the epic that I've planned for this week, it's going to be something rather different. My father's died, and this ride is going to be a tribute to him. So most of you already know I've been off the bike for some time. I've been visiting my dad in the UK for the last sort of month or so. He's been in hospital all that time, 6 weeks actually. And on the last visit I managed to catch COVID from his ward. So off, like I say, off the bike for several reasons. And today's the first proper ride I've had in such a long time. It's a beautiful day. The forecast is for fairly strong winds, but it is only 3 degrees C. My plan for today though, I'm going to do a ride of 83.4 kilometres, which is the number of years that my dad spent on this earth. And I'm going to tootle around the area looking at stuff and talking about him. Oh, it's so cold, my eyes are streaming, which is quite handy cover in case I get a bit upset later. I'll try not to. I'm a big boy. Anyway, my dad was born in 1940 in Dagenham, which is just to the east of London. And 1940 meant that he was born during the Blitz. And when the bombs started falling on Dagenham as well as London, he was evacuated to Yeovil with his mum and his sister. But I always felt that, we always do I suppose, my dad was a remarkable man, because he sort of came from a very humble background. His dad worked in Smithfield Meat Market, and I'm not entirely sure what his wife did, my nan Lily. She was a little pocket rocket though, about 4 foot. And Dad was never very tall. Sometimes wonder where me and my brother came from, except we look exactly like him. My brother's 6'3", I'm 6 foot. And Dad was, I don't know, 5'8". But Dad did pretty well at school, and so when he finally left school, he was quite well qualified. And as an East Ender, obviously London docks were calling, being right there. And he went to work for the Port of London Authority. But he was quite soon singled out. He's a good-looking lad. And he tried to improve his speech, so he wasn't quite so much of a Cockney. So it was more of a faint twang by then. And he was put to work working on the tourist boats on the Thames. So he worked on boats like the Marchioness, which famously sank many years later. But he would do all the patter about what they were going past, and he got to obviously know the area extremely well. Please don't be concerned, I'm not going to be spouting my dad's entire life history. It's just going to be a few anecdotes. But he was working on the boats, basically as a tour guide, and he got into fitness, gymnastics and circuit training and free weights, and he got quite big and he got extremely fit, and the sort of thing that he enjoyed most was calisthenics, which is using your body weight instead of weights. And he could do all sorts of incredible things. He met Mum on a beach in Spain, and he saw this girl. He thought she was German, and it was in Catalunya, strangely, on the Costa Brava up north. And he saw this girl and he thought, wow, she's gorgeous. So not knowing what to say, he decided he was going to walk past her on his hands, just nonchalant. And she laughed and he started talking to her. And it turned out that they shared the same birthday, 17th of May. And that was it, you know, locked in. And they were married for 58 years. But other things I remember about Dad's gymnastic prowess, silly things. He came to visit us out here in Spain probably 15 years ago. He was doing somersaults into the pool of the villa that they'd hired out, and he was, I don't know, 70, something like that. So the next stop in Dad's world tour history was when he went to work for the Road Research Laboratory in Reading in Hampshire. And the Road Research Laboratory are those people who are to blame for mini roundabouts and speed bumps and other traffic calming measures that they investigated to see whether they were effective or not. And it was while he was there that there was a big programme to promote road safety, and they used a fairly, at the time, unknown actor to become the Green Cross Code man, and he taught kids to stop, look and listen at road junctions, etc., when crossing the road. And he was Dave Prowse, and Dave Prowse later became Darth Vader in the Star Wars movies, and he and Dad had a shared interest in weightlifting and bodybuilding, and they actually became, I wouldn't say close friends, but friendly acquaintances, should we say. And I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but Dave Prowse had quite a strong west of England country accent, so he talked a little bit like that, but he was also quite high-pitched. So Darth would come, and Dave Prowse was huge. He was, I don't know how tall, 6'4", 6'5", Chewy. Sorry, Chewy, one of our viewers, he'll know, good friend as well. Hello there. So Dave Prowse would come onto set and he'd speak various lines. So there would be Darth, Dave Prowse, battling with Alec Guinness, having a lightsaber duel, and Dave would say, "You're a weak old man." And instead, of course, that had to be done by James Earl Jones, so he could put in some real sort of, "A weak old man." Poor old Dave. He was never happy with it. But the walking around on his hands thing became quite a thing. We'd be, I don't know, he'd just appear on his hands. And he could do things like walk up and down stairs on his hands. He'd nip out into the garden and he'd appear on his hands. Very fit. So Dad's job at the Road Research Laboratory was to publicise all the work that they did. He was a press officer there. And that led to him getting a new job as a press officer for the Central Office of Information, which sounds a little bit like some sort of propaganda tool. And I suppose in some ways it was. It was a civil service department that dealt with all of the press, journalists, whenever the government were mentioned in the newspapers or on TV. Dad worked in the Southwest office, so we all moved to Bristol area. And his job was basically to deal with fob-off journalists. Whenever a minister came visiting, maybe they'd be opening a bypass, or they'd be doing some sort of reforestation programme, because Dad worked for he was the press officer for the Department of Environment and Department of Transport. At least there might have been another one, not too sure. But a minister would want to come and do a bit of glad handing or planting a tree. Dad would say, "Oh, I might be on the telly tonight," and we'd look. And he'd say, "Yeah, there I am, look." And an elbow would appear in camera to hand the minister a spade so he could start digging, or a pair of scissors so that the bypass could be opened, that sort of thing. I do remember Dad had enormous respect for the ministers in those times. They were extremely capable. People like Michael Heseltine, he thought was, he didn't agree with him at all. Dad was a dyed-in-the-wool Labour supporter. But he did respect their skills and knowledge, how they handled things. And on a professional level, he liked them. But with the current crop of Tory ministers, really his contempt was bottomless. He loathed them with a passion. He wasn't particularly keen on the Labour leadership towards the end as well, as he was edging closer and closer towards Green Party policies. He was enormously concerned about the environment and what was going wrong with it and how little was being done to stop the slide. I've realised I'm using you. I'm writing, well, I haven't really started it yet. I'm writing Dad's eulogy for the funeral service, which is in it's 2 weeks today, and I haven't got very far. So I think what's happening here is I'm actually getting some thoughts together for that. And it does mean, of course, that there's not going to be another video for some time. So I'm going to go back and help Mum out with the arrangements. I was already there for a week doing those sorts of things. Amazing amount of bureaucracy for recording a death, and so many people to tell. And sometimes they're more upset than you are because you're getting used to the idea, and there's so many tears. And someone else breaks down on the phone, and it's hard work. And sadly, I'd imagine just about everyone watching this knows exactly what I mean. I know I've shown you these a dozen times before, but it's a cloud-pruned olive tree. It's not pruned to produce fruit, it's pruned to look pretty. I love them. Locals hate them because they have no function. But there's a place here that sells them. They're actually trimming them at the moment down there. But a big tree like this, millennial, it's at least 1,000 years old, it's at least 10 to 12,000 pounds. So in typical Yakko fashion, I've forgotten something. No water bottles. I'm just heading back now. So I'm probably going to change as well, because it's the temperature's going up rapidly. And when I was having a chat with you at Miravet Castle back there, I was absolutely sweltering. So it might be a bit of a fashion display of fat lad at the back kit today. So I changed from my fleecy long sleeved to my short sleeves. Well, as you can probably hear, the wind has gotten a bit nuts. So I've decided to put off the fat lad at the back fashion show for a little while. Certainly not today. We've got 30 kilometres now of headwind, but makes it more of a trial test, something worthy. This from my dad, so we're doing it anyway. Well, the going is really, really hard. There's been a couple of lorries that have nearly pushed me across the road with their, what do you call it, like a bow wave, really. I don't usually go out when it's this bad. It said gusts to 70 kilometres an hour. I suspect that's what we're getting here, but this is a gorge that we go through, and it does tend to channel the wind quite badly. So I'm hoping that when we get out on the plains in another few kilometres, it's going to improve. Let's hope so. Well, this wind isn't letting me tell you any of my little anecdotes that I was going to tell you. So I've had to pull over, found a nice little sheltered spot. We've got Fleesh in the background there. We're about halfway through my dad's ride. So there we were, climbing Snowdon. So Snowdon is is Wales's highest mountain, and I was about 8 years old. Brother was 10, and Dad was very, very fit, as I've mentioned, and he wanted us to go a different way up the mountain. So he decided to take us up the pig track, which is, well, steep, awkward. It's not one of the main trails up Snowdon by any stretch. And we were about halfway up. It started out in quite nice weather, and about halfway up, the clouds just came down, and we were in essentially thick fog. We couldn't really tell our way, and within seconds, all the moisture just clung all over us. We were soaking wet. But because I was a bit younger, Mum and Dad decided that I should be in shorts, and it was absolutely freezing, and instead of turning round we ploughed on. And I remember there were these steps cut into the hillside. They weren't proper steps, they were just where people had walked up and there'd been little landslides, so that it was like a step, but they were far too tall for my little short fat legs, and so I was having to lift my knee up onto each step and then lift myself up, and it was incredibly difficult. And my brother's a lot taller than me, and he found it quite easy, and Mum and Dad were adults, and I don't think they found it particularly difficult, and I found it really, really hard. But we did actually make it to the top, and there's some very miserable looking photos which I wouldn't get time to dig out before I post this video in the photo album. You know, everyone else smiling because they've, you know, summited, as we like to call it, and there's me with my cagoule on, trying to cover up my knees, blue knees, scratched and blue knees from obviously climbing up using my knees. Dad felt really, really guilty about it, so obviously we came down the easy way. I don't think we caught the train. There's a train you can catch. I don't think we caught the train back. I don't remember that. I remember walking down, but it put us at completely the wrong end of Snowdonia. So Dad, being fit and feeling guilty, he decided he was going to jog back and get the car. It was either 5 or 10 miles to the car, and he just jogged it, and we waited for him. And that's the anecdote. So after he was retired, my dad massively got into amateur dramatics. He was never the dame. He was never really comfortable with that, although he did like to play comedic parts. But the thing about dames, there's always someone, loads, in fact, of people within a company who want to play the dame. We've even asked one of them to be one of the readers at the funeral service, and though it was tempting to have him do a bit of a call and response. John's dead. Oh no, he isn't. Bit crass. No, we never thought that. It's just me being silly out here in the mountains, all alone, just where I like to be. When I got back from trying to sort out all the funeral arrangements with Mum, it took me a couple of days to get back on the bike. It was only yesterday. I had a bit of a dicky tummy. Ate something that I shouldn't have done. It's probably that stinky chicken Mum had in the fridge. I'm guessing. Pre-cooked. Who knows how long it had been in there. I was hungry. But I always like to think that going for a ride is a truly cathartic experience. Anything you're thinking about, worried about, it just passes to nothing when you're out on the bike. And I was really relying on it yesterday, and it didn't happen. I did a 30-kilometre ride, and it was just, painful, awkward, windy, really windy again. We've managed to get a little quiet bit here, but I needed to try again, so that's what today is. I'm making it special, we're making it completely about Dad. Well, it's done the job. Me talking about how cathartic it is isn't being about my dad, is it? I might take that out. It's not a day for narcissism, is it? As I'm hoping you can tell, I love my dad, but perhaps he wasn't born to be on stage. So enthusiastic, but he was always maybe the sort of a second string character perhaps, but he loved doing it. And he would play, say, the vicar in Arsenic and Old Lace, if you know that story. It's not a tiny part, but it's neither is it the lead. But his chance came, and he managed to bag the role of Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, and it really was his finest hour. He went for it. It was fantastic to see. Again, enthusiasm there, but everything he could, he put into that role. And I don't know how many performances they had to do. It was quite a few, maybe 5. And each one he was just absolutely brilliant in it.
they turn off all the lights.
Right, that was the turning round point. Hopefully, unless my maths is hopelessly wrong, which it probably is, we should be back at exactly 83.47 kilometres. Fingers crossed. Maybe proud that Dad was so full of praise for these little videos I make. He seemed to love them, but he really loved the comments too. And he particularly loved the comments when they're about him. So if you feel like it, put a little message to him in the comments section below. And if you feel that you want to support him, his favourite charity was one called Sight Savers. It helps to restore the vision to kids in impoverished countries who've lost their sight or were vision impaired. So if you want to give them a couple of quid, I'll put the link to that in the video description. Sadly, Dad didn't get to feature in many of my vids. As far as I'm aware, he was only in 2. In one, he came to see the Volta de Catalunya with me, and all there is of that is of the two of us standing by the side of the road in a little piece of footage that the helicopter took as it went overhead. And the other one was when I did my 10,000 kilometres in a year, and as I went over the line that he and Mum and my wife had devised out of toilet roll paper, he was there to support me, of course, as he always did. So that was my dad, or it's a little bit of my dad. He was a fine man, he was a gentle man, he was a moral man. It strikes me that there should be more men like him in the world and not less. So Mum called us at about 12 o'clock on the 12th of November, and she'd been told by the doctors that Dad really was desperately ill and that he wasn't going to make it. My brother and I booked flights immediately to try and get there in time, but he actually passed away about an hour later. So he was 80. I went out on this ride knowing that I was going to get it absolutely bang on. And as I was talking to you, I just went over. Well, I'll tell you what, this will be the age that I hoped he would have been, so that I could have got back in time to say goodbye. So it's not quite there. We've done 83.59, not 83.47, but it's near enough. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and I love you, Dad. Rest in peace.